An area of interest was just tagged this morning, and the southeastern coast of the U.S. needs to watch closely. What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. All right, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. The NHC has tagged an area of interest off the southeastern United States coast. A couple days ago, we were talking about how the Google DeepMind was calling for tropical development over there. Well, the NHC agrees with it, and they have tagged the area of interest over there. We have a lot to talk about with that today, mainly due to its proximity to the coast, as well as the fact that this actually is going to be moving through pretty decent conditions before it makes landfall in somewhere either between southern South Carolina or northern Florida. Most likely Georgia is the main area that we're going to want to watch out for. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go ahead and dive right into it. Starting off right here, this is the yellow, this is the lemon we are looking at right here. This is our area of interest right off the southeastern coast. We're going to want to watch this over the next few days, especially as time starts to move on and things start to organize down there. But let's go ahead and read what we have out here for you guys very quickly. A low area of pressure is expected to form offshore of the southeastern coast of the United States along the western end of a frontal system early next week. Slow development of the system will be possible thereafter while it moves slowly westward. 20% chance of formation in the next 7 days. This is the first area of interest, at least the first advisory for this area of interest over here that has been tagged. We're going to want to watch out for that and see how this will ultimately go. But mainly what we are seeing with this right here, and let's go ahead and shift back to our satellite view because I want to point this out. What we're going to see is we have a low pressure system over here. We have a frontal system that is currently moving across much of the eastern half of the United States. Well, it's expected to move off the coast of the U.S., and then right about here where my cursor is where that western part of that front is going to be at, and that's when that low pressure system is expected to, according to multiple models, detach, become its own source of energy, and start potentially becoming a tropical system after that. This has not been unheard of. Hurricane Barry back in 2019 ended up doing that in July of 2019. I actually remember that pretty distinctly. It was actually one of the first hurricanes I actually tracked pretty extensively post 2017 and 2018. So that's what we are definitely looking at, and that's what we're watching out for. So with that being said, let's go ahead and look at computer models to see what our timing will look like. So this is our situation. The front starts to come off the coast of the United States around, I'd say, June 30th. So that will be on that will be on Tuesday. But this is for right here. This, I believe, is for Monday right here. This is Monday night, I believe. So basically, we'll just call it Monday. So it's expected to emerge off the coast of the United States on Monday, and then start to potentially detach, and then start to slowly get its act together over incredibly warm waters just near the Gulf Stream, right off the coast of the United States. And due to its close proximity to land, impacts are definitely a very big concern of mine with this, especially as some of these models are definitely calling for more power than what you would originally think. So let's go ahead and take a quick gander at this right here. This is 72 hours out, so this is for Monday night. For Monday night at the time of initialization. This was the 0Z run that was initialized right here. So let's go ahead and go to Tuesday morning as things go on. It is still moving a bit to the southeast. It's still being influenced by that by that frontal system. It is expected to then jerk hard to the west and move towards the southeastern coast of the United States. But my, oh my, the Google DeepMind and a lot of other runs are really starting to pick up on this as well. We were looking at this on our first episode of the Triple P show last night. By the way, thanks for all those who tuned in to that. It really means a lot to me. And we'll talk more about the Triple P show near the end of the video. But ultimately, we were talking about this, we were looking at this, and from the 12Z to the 18Z, we weren't necessarily seeing a stronger track, but the tracks that we were seeing were a lot more consolidated on the ensemble runs. And when you see a more consolidated ensemble track, that means, okay, this isn't an all over the place, this is going to maybe fade or maybe not type of situation. This is actually going to be kind of consistent. And when the 0Z came out, I'll just go ahead and show you what comes next. So this is 96 hours, and already we're starting to see a little bit of those power numbers starting to pick up. 996, 1002, 1005 in a couple areas as well. This is already at potentially tropical storm strength, according to what we are seeing for the Google DeepMind, according to the ensembles. That's what we're looking at by the time we get to Tuesday. It's Tuesday night in this case. So that's what we're looking at by the time we get to that. Tuesday night is when we're seeing this, and you're starting to notice this shift a bit further to the south before it starts moving to the west. And few of the ensembles have actually started to make that turn more so towards the west, which I do think is kind of interesting. Let's go ahead and go to Wednesday morning. Right here, Wednesday morning, you're seeing this hard shift to the west. Right here, and we're definitely seeing more of the power numbers starting to kick in. 1,000 millibars, 1,001, 1,006, 996. The power numbers are starting to increase right here, which is indicating to me, at least what the Google DeepMind is forecasting, is essentially some pretty quick tropical development, and then for it to start strengthening at a pretty decent pace. And we'll talk about the conditions, and we'll look and see how realistic the ceiling is as well, just to kind of go, okay, we're seeing this right here. We're taking a quick gander at it. How realistic is the ceiling, and is the Google DeepMind overdoing it, or is it more accurate? So that's what we're going to look at, and then let's go ahead and shift to Wednesday night. Wednesday night, okay, that didn't help. Let's go ahead and zoom out, and we'll go ahead and do this. Zoom back into this. Perfect. So this is what we got for Wednesday night for you, ladies and gentlemen. Already, this is a pretty consolidated a pattern and a consolidated track according to the ensembles, but 993, 995, 997, these are indicative of at least strong tropical storm force winds right here, based on what we're seeing with the legend. Strong tropical storm force winds, that's winds of at least 60 miles per hour according to some of these ensembles. Majority of them keep it between around 50 and 60, at least from what I'm seeing with this track right here. But that's definitely something you're going to want to pay attention to, and that was stronger than Tropical Storm Arthur was just a couple of weeks ago. And then let's go ahead and go to Thursday morning. And Thursday morning, this system is forecast to make a landfall, I would say, and you do have a couple of these ensembles moving into hurricane territory. Right here, 990, 978, and a couple in the 980s, but the majority of them around the 990s or 1,000 millibar range, I would say. So, but you still have those power numbers definitely going up with this. And if we take the Google DeepMind at face value right here, hurricane scenario is not out of the question. But before I personally say this is going to be possible, I want to look at the conditions, and I want to look at everything. So I'm just right here, just showing you what the model is sharing, because the NHC is definitely picking up on this as well, and I want to kind of explain why the NHC is also kind of excited about this, despite the fact that some of the traditional runs aren't necessarily excited for tropical development. But that's what we're looking at for Thursday morning, and then going to Thursday night is when the system makes landfall. It moves into Georgia, Alabama, brings pretty significant impacts, I would say, across a lot of this region that we're watching out for. And then it's expected to, I believe, shift further towards the east. There's right here. Yeah, it's expected to shift further to the north and get yanked back to the east into the Carolinas and Virginia over there as we get towards the 4th of July. So it's going to be a pretty rainy 4th of July weekend for a lot of people on the east coast of the United States, and you're going to want to pay attention and see how this system will track, and we'll continue to keep you updated on all those things here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But before we do anything else, we're going to look at these water temperatures, and we're going to look at the conditions and go, okay, we see that what the runs are going for. We see why the NHC is onto this, but what is the realistic ceiling if this does develop? Well, let's go ahead and take a quick gander. Water temperatures are absolutely warm. It's not going to be tapping into the Gulf temperatures like we were forecasting maybe it might be doing a little bit later. It's shifted a lot further up to the north into Georgia and South Carolina, but still those water temperatures are pretty strong, around 28 to 29 degrees Celsius. That's 82 to 84 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you who do not use the metric system, i.e., those who are going to be impacted. So that's what we're looking at. And the Gulf Stream especially is very warm right now. It's very piping hot. Around that 29-degree contour is really starting to whip up through right here. But you're looking at 30 degrees Celsius, not too far further to the south areas off the coast of the Bahamas and the Florida coast over here that are going to creep up further and further to the north as the summer continues to go on. And also, we talked about this on the Triple P show, and I know this isn't necessarily directed to this situation in general, but you do have a very big high pressure system next week that's going to be moving into much of the eastern United States. That's going to also be helping this system get its act together because it's going to clear out all the low pressure systems and allow for the system to organize and develop. But that's also going to do is it's also going to really potentially warm the water temperatures in both the Gulf and the the southwestern Atlantic basin right off the coast of the United States. Heck, even the east coast of the U.S., like in areas like Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, New York City, could see some pretty significant water temperature surges, primarily due to the fact of that high pressure system is going to be there, and it's just going to be this massive heat dome. You're going to see temperatures potentially creeping up to triple digits across much of the U.S., and those triple digit temperatures are also going to be felt in areas with very warm water already, and it's only going to continue to heat up the water temperatures in the Gulf and off the United States East Coast. So that's what we're watching out for with our water temperatures. But still, back to this whole situation, very warm waters that are only going to get warmer by the day. And also, what's going to increase by the day is our ocean heat content. Look at the OHC where the system is forecast to go off of. It's about 50 to 75 OHC. 50 to 75 OHC may not seem like that much, especially compared to what we're seeing in the Caribbean, and especially also compared to what we're going to be seeing later down in the season. But 50 to 75 OHC is actually pretty good for decent strengthening, and it's also a pretty good fuel tank for initial tropical development as well. 50 to 75 OHC in a system that's going to be moving as slow as this system will be is actually going to be the perfect amount of fuel for potential tropical development. It's something we're going to want to pay attention to, and if the system does develop, as long as those conditions stay right, and as long as we look at the shear and the dry air, and that those aren't inhibiting factors, that's going to be good for very decent strengthening as long as the storm does not get in its own way. How strong are we looking at? Let's look at the wind shear and find out. So shifting our gear over to the Western Atlantic, we're going to move on and talk about our wind shear, the 200 to 850 millibar wind shear, because we were talking about this last night on the Triple P show, and Logan was talking about this too. He was kind of looking at the shear patterns, and what we are thinking right here is the shear that is going to form, at least across parts of the Gulf or in the southeastern U.S., is not going to be a synoptic scale. It's going to be more so mesoscale. And what we mean by that is instead of the large troughs and ridges shearing the system to oblivion, the shear that does pop up on this model is most likely going to be the storm's own created quote-unquote shear. And what I mean by that is the storm's winds that it produces, the potential gale force winds, the potentially strong wind gusts, at least on these computer models and in the observations, kind of make a bit of an oopsie and kind of at least generate, according to these models, its own kind of shear pattern. That doesn't mean the storm is being sheared. It just means the storm is producing wind, and the shear that's there is a part of the system. So that's what we're going to be looking at least for right here. But based on what we are seeing, synoptic shear does influence this region for a little bit for the next 48 hours or so. And then as time progresses, look at this. This is when the low pressure system starts to detach and it starts to move off the Carolina coast. And as time continues to go on, you do start seeing that shear moving into parts of the Carolinas and Florida right here, but this does not, to me, look like it's synoptic shear. This, to me, looks like it's influenced by mesoscale conditions, and that, to me, is looking like it's the storm itself that's creating the shear, and ultimately, it's not going to be as big of an inhibiting factor. And then as time continues to progress, the system starts to slowly get its act together, and you do have a pretty considerable shear pocket, a very low shear pocket over here that starts to form right off the coast of South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. And if that ends up holding, this system can, especially if it's over the Gulf Stream, can really take full advantage of that and potentially organize and develop at a very rapid pace, and then potentially strengthen at a pretty decent pace right here. This, to me, from the pattern I am looking at, definitely increases the ceiling of the potential intensity of the system, but we do have a couple other factors that we need to take into consideration. Number one, the shear that's there previously, is it going to linger, or is it going to move out of the region by the time big organization starts to take place on Monday and Tuesday? That's the first thing we need to consider. The second thing is, if there is shear in the region, what is the moisture component like, and what's the dry air going to potentially do? And for that, we have an answer. Here is your dry air aspect of this. This is the European, ladies and gentlemen, so I am right here. So this is definitely an interesting situation, but you do have some dry air moving in through parts of the southeastern U.S. and parts of Georgia and South Carolina. The dry air, to me, has always been kind of the wild card of the scenario right here, but unlike previous scenarios where you see this massive heap of dry air, it's mainly to the north and it's mainly to the south over here, and the dry air that's currently where this path is expected to go, according to the DeepMind and other model runs, is more so what I like to call mixable dry air. Mixable dry air, I've said this like a broken record, if you produce convection, it mixes out the dry air, and the moisture pocket continues to increase. But you do have a pretty considerable moisture pocket to work with. You have a good starter package when the system emerges around Monday morning. So you want to watch out for that. You want to keep an eye on that. You want to see how this is going to flow. There is some dry air that you're going to want to watch out for across much of the United States and across much of the Carolina coast. This, to me, is the wild card right here. And just to kind of show context, what's the GFS looking at right here? The GFS is showing something similar to that with the 12C. Right here, but I am noticing something by the time we get to July 2nd. You are noticing a lot of this dry air gets pushed up and pushed out of the Atlantic. It gets pushed further inland before the system starts to make landfall. That's definitely an interesting aspect. The GFS is a bit further to the south with its bias right here, but at least for what I am seeing, there is dry air that's going to maybe initially inhibit some sort of development right here, but as time goes on and as it moves closer to the coast, it looks to me that dry air problem gets pushed out and pushed away from the tropical development region and gets pushed more inland, which is going to be potentially a very good scenario for tropical development and not so good a scenario for those who want to enjoy a 4th of July weekend. So that's what we're looking at right here. Overall, my overall thoughts on this are as goes. Number one, water temperatures, very good. Wind shear, very good. Dry air is our wild card. And at least for now, it's looking to me like it's going to be maybe an inhibiting factor early on. But from the time we get to around July 1st, which will be on Wednesday, that will be a lot less of a factor compared to what we've seen previously. And if the system just right off the bat starts producing a ton of convection off the frontal boundary and then detaches, then the dry air, in my opinion, is not going to be nearly as big of an issue because there's not really a lot of shear that's going to be surrounding it to cause a potential dry air intrusion. So overall, it's just going to be, we're going to want to see how this will pan out. Personally, the ceiling for this, for me, in my opinion, is if this system does develop, I'm thinking moderate to strong tropical storm strength with this, but that doesn't mean you're not going to see impacts because this is going to be a slow-moving storm. Flash flooding is especially going to be a threat for those tuning in from maybe Charleston, Atlanta, Augusta, and areas in between, like even especially in Savannah as well. I know Greg is probably going to be watching out for this very closely, and this is probably something he's going to want to be updated on for sure. So we'll keep you updated on that, and that's just my overall thoughts on this whole system, and we'll continue to keep you updated on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. Ladies and gentlemen, we're ending it right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Closing in on 15,000 subscribers. Let's see if we can hit it by the end of the month. month, that would be much appreciated. Next Triple P show will be on Sunday, July 5th. I've already invited Naz back onto the show. He has agreed to come on. I also invite David as well as any other weather YouTuber who would like to come on as well. Well, with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.